Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for coming to the Clerks meeting this morning. It's been quite a while since we've done something like this, and I think it's really great to just come together and sort of see how the whole committee system is doing, just because it is such a important part of our life here at Friends Meeting of Austin. So I guess what we were thinking yesterday in the Clerks meeting is maybe sort of centering this around maybe 5 queries. So I guess I'm just going to share the queries with you in the chat right now at the beginning. However, we'll go through them sort of one by one, and maybe just sort of do this in a format of sort of silence, and then as you feel led to speak and respond to the first query. And I'll sort of repost the queries throughout the meeting, since I know the chat doesn't appear to everyone as they come in. So I'll make sure each question, as we sort of reflect on that, is present. But here, just so you guys can all have a preview, here are the 5 questions that we'll be thinking about today in the meeting. So hopefully everybody can see that in the chat. So for the first one, I guess I just maybe we'll do a little bit of silence and then sort of sharing out as people feel led. How does your committee contribute to the spiritual life of the meeting? And maybe if you could also say, oh, actually, you know what, before we even do that, just to get a quick sense, just a quick sound off, what committees are actually here today? I think that'd be a good thing to start off with. I guess I can just start with myself. I'm James Fuller, and I'm a clerk of the Adult Religious Education Committee. I also serve on Caring Council, and I'm associate clerk. Cool.
I represent the library.
Thank you.
And we're pretty.
I represent, I'm clerk of Caring Council, and I'm on worship and ministry, and I attend Peace and Social Concerns.
And I'm
nothing was seen.
As of about 3 weeks ago, our last worship and ministry committee, Melissa, I'd be glad to be corrected. I think by process of elimination, I'm the acting clerk of worship and ministry. Is that correct? Is that
Absolutely.
Your impression?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And also am on ARE and occasionally attend Peace and Social Concerns.
I'm First Day School, and we've really not met during the pandemic other than once or twice, so but I'm here.
I'm the clerk of Community Relations Committee and the acting clerk of Community Life, and I attend Peace and Social Concerns sometimes.
Friendly communications here.
Peace and Social Concerns.
Finance Committee.
Oh, but Glenna and Tobin, I think you might be trying to say something, but you're muted.
He can't talk, or he doesn't have a mic or something.
He's just muted on it.
Tobin, do you have a? No, he can't. He can't.
Let's let Glenna speak.
I'm just an active trustee and prison ministry, which is not an official.
That's a good. And Tobin is House and Grounds.
All right.
And I'm Friendly Communications as well.
Right.
Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourself and also for being here this morning. So let's go ahead and maybe just speak out as you feel led in answer to that first query. So I'll go ahead and post that again in the chat, which is, how does your committee contribute to the spiritual life of the meeting?
Well, I think it's so different for the library because it just sits there until people use it. And I guess the information gained from it can lead people to think more and feel more, depending on what they put into their brains.
Well, since the committee that I'm representing is the one that every first day is pointed out as having a special care for the spiritual life of the meeting, I should probably say something. There's, of course, the nuts and bolts, who we close the meeting and to have a care for if something were to come up during meeting for worship. And of course, when we're meeting in person, we would also have a greeter. So those are the kind of the physical parts of it. And also a care, again, more physically for the worship space and how it's managed by the meeting. But beyond that, the committee spends a great deal of time holding in discussion and sometimes in the light, how worship is in general for the meeting. And I guess I'll leave it at that because that's otherwise I'd be going into detail for a lot more time. But that's in general how we hopefully contribute without running the spiritual life.
Well, I'll share that Peace and Social Concerns meets on a weekly basis these days for about the last year to maybe, yeah, about the last year. And we've used that time to discern how to make use of the contributions that come from members and attenders to the COVID Relief Fund. And we work on various minutes that have come forward. There will be one later today. There was one last summer that originated in Peace and Social Concerns. We've got a variety of things kind of under our umbrella, our care, and that includes prison ministry. Gosh, I don't have the website in front of me. Earth Care Witness, which is something that we've been reminded we ought to be doing more on. Maybe others want to chime in, but I'll leave it at that for now.
So is the question how the finance committee contributes to the spiritual life of the meeting. I guess I would say probably the vector would be by trying to prevent any major problems from occurring and keeping general stress levels low by hopefully being reassuring that things are being managed and our affairs are generally in order.
Well, you know,
go ahead.
Friendly communications is one of those kind of organizing committees, but you know, I think most committees are, and you can, to the extent that the committees contribute sort of to the lifeblood of the community, they keep the community going. It's the community that creates the spirituality. So it's sort of a second hop there to the spirit. But you know, I think this could be said for lots of committees that that keeping the community going and keeping the community alive is what contributes to the spiritual life of the community.
Care and Counsel contributes, of course, to people who in the meeting who are having financial difficulties, keeping them going and part of the community. We also, of course, provide opportunities for people to work on issues that they may be having. And of course, we have care of membership to help grow the meeting and keep the meeting healthy.
The care of the children has been a very big part of our meeting. We've always been blessed with a good number of children, some more than other years. Right there. There's our big contributor right there. Hey, hi, Opal. And then as a result, it really keeps us connected to the families, because the families come in, bringing their children. It really helps get them connected as well. And that connection that the community, like Terry was saying, was that's a big part of building that community within them, having an opportunity for the children to see each other as a part of a community together is very important to us. And if you watch them when they come in, not all, but many of the faces also reflect that these children are a big part of our community. And so we generally share some of our messages in meeting and when we're together. And so hopefully we'll be doing that again before too long. And Opal can come and tell us some things.
I think Columbia Ministry has a direct connection to Spiritual Life of Friends and connecting us to the work that Paul and Carol do that's so completely grounded in Friends' peace testimony and other values that are near and dear to us. We're not very good about helping the meeting see that connection, so we'll own that. But I think there's a sort of an outreach to friends values around the world in the work that we're doing with Paul and Carol.
I feel like adult religious education is another committee where the connection to the spiritual life of the meeting is a little bit more sort of direct or obvious, that we're trying to encourage people to reflect on these spiritual topics and learn about the history of the Quaker movement and to deepen their own spiritual lives and the spiritual lives of the community. Also to reflect interests and concerns and issues that are in the lives of people here at the meeting, what we're involved in terms of things happening in the city, things happening in social movements and meetings that people have, and just trying to create a space where we can think about those as a community and talk about them. That's sort of what we see our mission as, and how we can contribute to the whole spiritual life of the meeting.
I'll go. Community relations is in charge of the marquee, and I know it doesn't change very often, but we do strive to have messages on the marquee that contribute to the spiritual life of our meeting and of the neighborhood as people drive by. And community relations, community life. It's kind of like Woodward Avenue and Woodland Avenue. You know, they're right next to each other. Community life, I'm going to say, contributes food. And that the food and the coffee give people the opportunity to chat and building community in a social way, I think also furthers the spiritual life of the community.
I'll try an alternate path. Can you hear me? Okay. House and Grounds is responsible for holding the space for the spiritual life of the meeting, which is not required, as we can see right now today, but is something to be longed for when we can meet again on property. So keeping the building and property and grounds in shape and as in alignment with our Quaker values is what we primarily do.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to post now the second query, which sort of is very closely related to the first one. It's what issues items or issues is your committee currently working on? And I guess I can go ahead and answer that for adult religious education. Our primary work right now, of course, is just creating the forum schedule and sort of maintaining these and arranging people to speak and making sure that the community knows about those. Another big function we have right now is running Quakerism 101, which I'm very happy we've been able to do yearly now. And I think we certainly have at least a good 2 or 3 people who are relatively new to Quakerism who are in Quakerism 101, as well as many people who've been more experienced friends, which I think is actually a really great mix of people. And I think that's a project I care a lot about and I'm very passionate about, since I think it really, it's really important to try to give people a next step when they come to the meeting, something they can do to learn more about Quakerism and understand sort of what's going on here. I think that's a really important way we can welcome folks into the community.
Karen Council has, as an ongoing concern, the well-being of various people in the meeting that we keep under our care and keep in touch with. We have recently worked on making the biographies of the people who are memorialized on the Memorial Garden wall available to folks. There will be a report about that at the business meeting today. And of course, we administer the benevolence fund for folks who are in need. And as I mentioned, we recently went through the process of the clearness committee for a new member for our meeting, and there will be a first reading today at the business meeting.
Peace and social concerns, in addition to COVID relief, has since the winter holidays been working a little bit more on communications with prisoners at Polunsky and Mountain View. We got a lot of requests for pen pals, which led us to revise the written advices on corresponding with prisoners, and which we then translated into Spanish, and that's on the website. I think the Spanish hasn't been posted yet, but I need to follow up on that. And we're still seeking pen pals. A lot of folks reached out, as at least 30, and Joanna is helping to organize volunteer pen pals to work with those folks. Yeah. Other things too, but I'll leave it at that.
Worship and Ministry, as probably all of you know, has for a number of years been working on the issue of the acoustics in the meeting room which of course is not quite as urgent at the moment, but it will be as soon as a lot of people start meeting. And I'm happy to report, we probably would have had a report this business meeting, but a couple of things intervened. One is the departure of our clerk, Don Swartout, who moved out of state last month. And the other thing is that we realized that we would like to incorporate the idea of hybrid meetings into whatever sound solution we have. So this is turning into a report, isn't it? Anyway, I'll probably, hopefully we'll be having a report next month and be turning things over to House and Grounds for letting out bids. So we'll see how that works. Anyway, that's the issue that's the biggest one for us right now.
Columbia Ministry is working on reconnecting Paul and Carol with the meeting physically in cyberspace. So we have a forum scheduled, and I think in particular highlighting how the Noah's Ark work that we help support the administration of that fund, and Paul and Carol's work on that in the time of COVID has become even more important. And I think that that's a connection we can make between the meeting and the greater world.
I guess Barbara is having a little trouble with her sound right now, but she writes in the chat just so we can get this for the recording. The library is dormant right now, but we can work on improving the inventory and organization when present.
Well, about friendly communications, it only has 2 or 3 members, Erica and me. John Polachek is nominally a member of the committee, doesn't regularly participate, but we call on him from time to time for his particular skills. This has been the state of affairs for a long time. It's not just because of COVID that we haven't been able to really convene as a committee, but we have a sort of laundry list of jobs that we do, and we just keep doing them and consult informally about that. That's mostly me and Erica. So Erica may be able to help with the list. One is the website creation and administration. Also the sort of recruitment and oversight of folks who help with that sort of thing. For instance, Steve Dock and Jim Kuhn, you know, have been active in creating some things on the website. So there's that, and then there are the regular emailings that we do and the database work related to that of maintaining our list of members, attenders, and people who just want to get our mailings. The video conferencing, I mean, doesn't formally really come under the purview of Communications Committee, but probably should. And, you know, personally, we do some work in setting that stuff up with the help of Steve and others, and just making that go. We produce friendly notes. That's mostly Erica, and we still mail friendly notes to postal address subscribers. And Erica, you can go on with this. I would, before you do, I just would like to say at some point, I would hope that we actually get a few more members and have a committee meeting, because I think when you just do tasks, you may lack the envisioning process that committees need to keep going in these kinds of responsibilities.
Yeah, yeah, we have the monthly newsletter, and I think I didn't speak up when we were talking about the spiritual life of the committee, of the meeting, but I really, really do appreciate when Tobin or others contribute poetry or art or photographs to help us stay connected. The weekly bulletin has gotten very long, and I'm dreading going back to putting that in print, because how am I going to cut down all the stuff that's in there? We did have about a year ago, we did have someone who's volunteered to try and do some reformatting of that, and we gave him all the information, and then he just disappeared. So I don't know what what happened with that. But what Terry said in terms of revisioning, we've had the same format for friendly notes and for the bulletin for decades now, and we need some fresh looks and some fresh ideas to entice people to read and keep people connected.
Just a couple more additions. One is that in the COVID crisis, the Zoom recordings enable us to build a whole library of videos, and these all go on our YouTube channel. And so the maintenance of the video collection and the YouTube channel itself have become, still another big job that we do. And I hope we can do some creative thinking about how to keep doing that stuff in the post-Zoom era. There was something else I was going to mention, but the COVID page, the health pages, information about the COVID crisis is, something that's been a new project that's been kept up during this time.
Community life and community relations, partly for my own convenience, have been meeting on Wednesday, the second Wednesday of the month, from 6 to 7 for community life and 7 to 8 or 8+ for community relations. So one Zoom meeting morphs into the other Zoom meeting. And attendance has been a little iffy. So actually taking on and following through with projects has been a little bit iffy. Community life is sort of dormant in that, nobody's using the meeting house for worship, well, the hybrid meeting, but, we're not providing coffee, tea, or anything else. Although thankfully, Candelaria is going and cleaning once a month. And we're going to need somebody who has the skills and the digital capability of making a spreadsheet for the social hour job list. And we're going to need people to populate that job list. At one point, I sent out an inquiry to everybody who received that. It was an old list, as some of these lists are, and some people did and some people didn't write back. And most people said, yeah, I'm on the list and I'd be willing to do it again. Some people didn't say that. So just to do the bare bones stuff that we need to do, we need more people. At this point, Patrick Shaw, who is a new dad, as we know, is on the committee and he was really big in the Christmas get together, right? Online, the whatever it was called, a variety show, talent show, and the other two people are Mitch Derry and Carrie McIntyre, and Carrie's willing to move stuff when stuff needs to be moved, and Mitch is really helpful in the kitchen, but when there's no kitchen, it's like, okay, so I'm asking for more young people because I have this assumption that young people are good at things like spreadsheets. I am not. I don't even have the computer capability. And there is, so that's that. Community relations, we also are going to be desperately sort of seeking additional members because we have 4 people and 2 of them are moving out of state in the next couple of months, one being Katie McNeil and one being Madison Daniels. And much as I would love for them to stay on the committee when they're out of state, it's a completely unreasonable request or wish. So the way that, so Katie was instrumental in getting the green bin that we now have for compost, so we don't have to throw it in the trash after eating meetings. Madison is looking into fee schedules at other churches, because although I erroneously thought that the fee schedule had been approved by Meeting for Worship with Attention to Business, I finally realized that it has not, and needs to come back with more information after such research is done. We hope to put another sign on the marquee before Katie and Madison leave. And again, it'd be great to have young people on the committee, partly for doing things like that, like putting more messages on the marquee. The other person on the committee besides Katie and Madison is Bob Olwell, and he's really reliable and not all that familiar with Quaker process that I know of. And we also answer the phone answering machine and occasionally get actual people who are really interested in something having to do with the meeting as compared to selling us something.
Thank you, Joanna. I feel like I know not everyone has had a chance to respond to the question of what are we working on at the moment. Looks like Tobin is eager to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention for House and Grounds that the tasks are pretty much routine at this point, but our committee also has been shrinking because of David will be leaving, and for the last number of months, Hannah has been in Mason, so it's been basically Stuart, Carey, and myself. So we are in need of consideration for new members to help with the ongoing and every week, every month kinds of tasks that might come up for the property and the buildings that we have there. Also, as part of the kind of the connection with the school support committee with Los Amiguitos, we're maintaining that, and I will have a little statement about that for the meeting today about summer activities and things.
Yeah.
James, real quick, I just want to mention or note that many committees have talked about the need for additional members, and as far as I know, we have no representation from nominating. This is a serious issue. If any of you, is anyone here a member of nominating? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a serious concern. Yeah, I guess I felt like the conversation was already sort of naturally drifting in this direction of the next query. So I feel like it might make sense to kind of roll this in. If people still want to talk about what they're working on, that would also be great. But I guess the next query is, are there parts of committee life that give you energy and hope? Are there parts that feel stuck or discouraging? And certainly the need for members on several committees probably falls into, so it's kind of a two-part question, probably falls into that second question there.
Well, since I didn't get to answer the last question, maybe I'll just go first with this one. So I think, energy and hope is that, Warren and Terry English and Heather, are just really diligent and consistent and just keep our finance stuff moving forward week after week, you know, with keeping our transactions going and our bank deposits and keeping records. And so it's always just really encouraging to see just how, you know, how diligent they are. On the discouraging side, we just, you know, we've had an ambition for quite a while to become better at long range planning. You know, we're pretty good at setting some annual targets and having an annual budget and staying within the annual budget, but in terms of integrating long run plans is conceptually more difficult, and organizing it is more difficult. And Janet McCracken had been the person who was really the lead person and had a really good vision about how we would move forward on that. And since the pandemic hit, we actually haven't even heard from Janet. So that kind of put a dent in that, you know, where we were, I thought, making quite a bit of progress. And, you know, Steve has been a big part of helping prod us to do better on that too. And, you know, Janet was really taking the lead on that, and without her, it's kind of been hard to figure out how to keep that moving forward. So.
And I hope you're not discouraged by being regularly attacked with a giant monster hand.
That's just part of the ongoing struggle of life. Terry.
Yeah, we should put it in the job description.
Well, it's for Peace and Social Concerns, it's been very encouraging and energizing that we've been able to kind of keep a weekly meeting going for a year, and really encouraged that that a lot of the work of the committee that has gone on has been largely through attenders of the committee rather than members. And maybe that's an issue with nominating, but these are open meetings, so we just really haven't worried too much about trying to make people formal members or not. They've been, yeah, it's been a good run of weekly meetings, and we're going to try and keep it up.
Yeah, I guess one thing that's been encouraging to me is that committee participation, at least on adult-related education, and I feel like also on the other committees that I serve on, has not been hurt by being on Zoom or really the COVID pandemic, that we continue to have really strong attendance. In fact, it's actually, at least for me, especially since I ride the bus, actually much easier to participate in committee life now that it's on Zoom primarily, just because I don't have to spend an hour on the bus getting to a committee meeting. I just take 5 minutes to turn this on. I'm hopeful that actually this might be something that might make committee life and committee participation easier going forward.
For me, on Care and Counsel, I'm always energized and full of hope after a meeting, because it's wonderful to be with people consistently month after month who are so caring and so thoughtful. And I can't really think of anything right at the moment that I find discouraging, except that I have been wanting to step down as clerk of Care and Counsel for over a year. So another nominating issue.
I have to mention that I find it very encouraging that as a meeting with a wide variety of committees and long-term members and lots of new people attending, we seem to get along with very little friction and no factionalism. And I think for a Quaker, long-standing Quaker meeting, we are blessed. to not have to deal with those issues. And we have to thank the spirit for that.
Well, I'm really ready to be off of community life. I've been on it forever, and I feel a little bit trapped. And I do find it discouraging and frustrating that despite repeated requests, not just to nominating, but to business meeting, and I know the minutes get published, that, you know, it feels like very few people have responded in the last year. It's anyway. So those are areas that feel stuck and discouraging to me. But it's, as somebody just said, very nice to get together with these people on a monthly basis, whoever shows up. And I'm going to say especially the new members, getting to know them better. It's a great way to get to know people, to do work together.
I'm sorry to rush us through this. I know people haven't all responded to that query. I just wanted to throw out, and I feel like at this point, we've only got about 5 minutes or less left before we want to sort of take a little break before meeting for worship. So feel free to respond to any of the questions if you feel led at this point. But I just wanted to post the last couple, which sort of work as a pair as well. So these questions are: does your committee preserve useful practices and institutional memory? For example, does your committee use the FMA website for notices, minutes, documents, and et cetera? And the final question is: how does your committee welcome new ideas, new members, and change? So I feel like these are sort of the twin poles here, one of trying to preserve institutional memory and keep our documentation and make sure that we preserve our good practices. And then on the other side, how do we make sure that our committees are open and able to change and embrace new ideas?
Well, Peace and Social Concerns has a weekly agenda, and we add, you know, sometimes other things come up, but we don't keep minutes, and we probably should. But the capacity of the members and attenders to take that on has been limited, and I sort of feel like if you go back through emails and look at agendas, you get a pretty good sense of what the committee's been up to. And you know, we've had some folks express interest in joining the committee over the last year and a half or so, and maybe come once but not stick around. And so I wonder what we could be doing differently to maybe be more welcoming to new folks.
I just wanted to mention that, emphasize the importance of committees keeping minute or proceedings of what they've done. Since I stepped in at the last Worship Ministry Committee, I actually have proceedings that I'm going to start posting and hope to keep doing that. And just to remind friends, it's often, I think if you look at the faith and practice that we are still operating under from North Pacific, it says that either there shall be a recording clerk for the committee, which seems like a lot of extra structure, or that the committee clerk can take the notes. And I think, just not to discourage people, all you have to do is say, you know, at least say, the committee met, we talked about X, and we have Y coming out of the committee for further consideration. And they can all be very short. They don't have to do blow-by-blow accounts of what everybody said.
Karen Council has an agenda. We also keep minutes. But the minutes are not posted because it's mostly confidential. things that are not confidential are usually minuted at the business meeting, like new members, for instance.
Melissa, could the minutes be like scrubbed, you know, redacted or whatever, so that they could be posted?
I don't think they'd be very interesting. I suppose, but everything that needs to be known, it either gets posted on the bulletin or is minuted in the business meeting. So I don't see the need for that. But I may be wrong.
If there's a need to store and retrieve that kind of thing in a very private place, we could figure out how to do that. So just, you know, bear that in mind.
There is no private place.
Well, there is a private place. We can create a private place, but you know, the question is whether that would be useful, and whether having an accessible long-term record of things like that we are doing. I think maybe a whole discussion that derives from that. But it's technically not a problem. We can figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I guess, are there any further, I'm mindful that we're about 10:52 now. Are there further thoughts or things, I guess just as sort of summation, I'm hearing a lot of issues around the issue of nominating and membership and clerking, that people either really need new members or feel the need to move into something else, but don't feel like they can lay down their positions in some cases because there's not anyone to do those things. So I feel like that is one concern that really emerges very strongly from this conversation. Also, documentation is a good one that sort of is emerging here, that we should try to do that. Are there other things that people just want to sort of say or feel that emerge from this conversation that we should think about as a community related to the committees?
James, I think these are really good queries, and I'm going to share them with our Columbia Ministry Committee, because I think they speak to a lot of ways that we can get better and re-engage Paul and Carol's work more with the meeting. I also think that in the time of COVID, it does affect bringing new people on board, even though it also has given us some silver linings and ways of doing things that we might keep. But yeah, I just wanted to say that, both of that. So thank you for the queries.
I've been very aware that the only people at this forum are the clerks of committees. And I think that's very telling.
Well, I think it'll make a very useful video that we can point people to who want to know what committees are about. I'm really pleased with that. I just want to flag for long-term discussion that we have these perennial problems that are shared across all committees of maintaining our membership and maintaining the clerkship. There's so many people who have been clerks for years and would like to, you know, do something else and are unable to, and that's a problem that we just have had for a long time and hadn't been able to solve. So I look forward to our working on those things.
All right, well, thank you so much, friends, for being here this morning. I really appreciate being able to have this conversation with you all. So yeah, I guess we probably stop the recording and maybe just get ready for a meeting for worship.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Oh, Terry, if you could stop the recording.